Uh, telling these stories has got me to thinking about things, some more. And I was just thinking about the fact that I told a story about my first really important tennis match. First really important tennis match was when I was 60 years old, and I was playing in the finals of the Kenwood 60s. Kenwood has no age group things except they had, when you reach 60, they had a 60s champion, doubles and singles for the men. And that otherwise there was no age distinctions. And the first important match I said I had was when I played the final and won the Kenwood 60s. And I thought about that afterwards, and I thought that's remarkable, because that's 5 years after I was the -- 1 ranked player in the state of Maryland. I mean, I'd been playing already nearly 10 years in MATA events, Mid-Atlantic sectional events. And when I was 55, that was the first year in the 55s, and I left behind all the 45s who were beating up on me, and I was now a young 55, just turned 55, and I was one of the best players there, and it was the biggest tournament of my life. I won the Maryland State Clay Court Championships, and it was the biggest tournament I ever played in, a full 64 draw. I played 6 matches. I won 6 matches. I won the final, and I was Maryland State 55's champion. And that victory propelled me to end up the year as the #1 singles player in the state of Maryland, 55 and over. And here I'm saying the first important match that I played in my life, really important, was the 60 Kenwood Club men age group 60s singles. And how's that possible? Well, I thought about it, and it's very possible because Kenwood was my home away from home. Kenwood was my home away from home. And my friends were at Kenwood. My friends weren't on the tour, weren't on the MATA tour. My friends were at Kenwood. And there was they didn't know anything about what I was doing on the tour. And they could care less, and there was no age group stuff at Kenwood. And I was small potatoes at Kenwood. I was small potatoes. I mean, the club champions and all those big deals. I mean, I was just a guy. And therefore, that 60s championship propelled me from a nothing at Kenwood to somebody important at Kenwood. And yet that occurred 5 years after I'd won the Maryland #1 ranking in the state of Maryland in the 55s. So that brings me to another important match, and this is going to blow your minds, because I now know why it's so important, because it was Craigsmore. Who's the best tennis player at Craigsmore? Well, it's me. It's not Byron Hollinshead. Everybody thinks it's Byron Hollinshead. I mean, By's got this great figure. He speeds around the court. He can play like crazy. Everybody thinks By Hollinshead's the best tennis player at Kenwood. But By would never play me. No, he would never play me. He wouldn't play me the singles. All he would do was hit. Which was fine by me. If he didn't want to play me, he didn't want to play me. And so we would hit. And, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. In the late afternoon, we would hit, and then we'd both go to the pool. He loved to sit out there late in the afternoon and go swimming and sit there and watch the sun go down. And we'd sit there and have a lot of nice times together. No question, without By Hollinshead, I'm telling you, Craigsmore wouldn't have been anywhere near as much fun for me. So I owe By a lot of thanks, and I mean it when I say Craigsmore would not be the same without By Hollinshead. But I could also say there's nobody more different than me than By Holland said. Nobody. I can't imagine a guy more different from me than him. And we early on had a huge, horrible argument over the Vietnam War. And I resolved never to argue with him again, and he resolved, I think, never to argue with me again about politics or anything of the sort. But that just to give you an idea, that argument ended when By said to me, "Only I am allowed to remember what I say." And if By ever showed any sign of wanting to argue with me, I would always say, "Only you are allowed to remember what you have said in the past." And that always kept us from arguing. But anyway, so one summer I spent at Cragsmore, and because I knew so little about how to hit a forehand, I'm trying to hit deeper forehands, and I kept hitting them out. All summer long, I kept hitting the ball out. So at the end of the summer, I mean, like on Saturday, By and I were both going home on Monday. Early September. We're going home early on Monday. And By says, "Well, tomorrow's our last day. Maybe we ought to play a match tomorrow." And I instantly knew what he had in mind. He thought he could beat me, and he's going to beat me and be the champion of Cragsmore for the year, and maybe the champion of Cragsmore forever. But I'm not about to turn down a match. And I said, "Of course we'll play. Absolutely, we'll play tomorrow." And yet I knew that because I was hitting him out all summer long, he thought, I said, "This guy thinks he's going to beat me. And if I'm not careful, he will." So the next day, the only concession I got out of you might say, I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll play you, but I'm not going to be playing you late in the afternoon when the shadows from the trees cross the court, because the ball coming from dark to light and light to dark is very hard on me." So I said, "We'll play at noon. We'll come out at 11:30 and get the match when we'll start the match, and we'll be basically playing at noon when the sun's overhead." He said, "Fine." So 11:30, and I got ready for that match early. I actually jogged around the yard. Did warm-up exercises, and got ready like I'm playing in a tournament. I said, "I'm treating this like a tournament match." And I said, "I haven't played in a tournament in a long time, and my standard practice was early in a match to hit the shots as easiest for me to hit. Not to worry about where the other guy was. I don't care where the other guy was, just hit the tennis shot that's easiest for me to hit at that moment. And only after I'm thoroughly warmed up do I then begin to turn my attention to hitting the ball where my opponent doesn't want me to hit it." And so I said, "I'm going to do that relentlessly here at the beginning of this match." So the match began, and it just so happens that the way I could hit the easiest shots were cross court, a backhand, and a down-the-line forehand. And both of those shots go to By Holland's head strong point, which is his backhand. So if I'm hitting my easiest shots, they go right to his toughest, his best shot. And I knew that, and I knew that was going to give me a problem, but that was the best way for me to warm up. And so I kept doing that for 4 games. And after 4 games, he dominated the 4 games. I was just running around, getting the ball back and hitting the easiest shot I could hit. And they're all going to his backhand, and he's dominating. And at the end of 4 games, it felt like he should have been ahead 3-1, but I was ahead 3-1. Why was I ahead 3-1? Well, I was a tournament player, and I didn't give away points. That's what you do when you're a tournament player. And even though he dominated, I had given away virtually no points, and I was ahead 3-1. And now I'm thoroughly warmed up, and I said, okay, now it's time to turn attention to the match itself, and then 20 minutes, I'd won 9 games, blew him away, just blew him away, and won the match 6-1, 6-0. And I consider that a very important tennis match. He's never volunteered to play me again. Never. He never volunteered ever again to play me in a tennis match. And so I knew deep down, he knew, I knew, I'm champion of Cranksmore. So here, these are 2 obscure things I mentioned as important, but they were important to that particular life that I was leading, the Kenwood life and the Cranksmore life. And none of them have anything to do with my really good tennis matches, which I will tell about it in later times. That's all for now.